Four of history's sharpest minds, four debates that never happened until now, step into the arena. History's two greatest minds and their most embarrassing secrets, Einstein versus Tesla, no gloves.
Tell me, Albert, is E equals mc squared your masterpiece, or is it just short for Einstein? Married his cousin twice? You wed Elsa, and she was related to you on both sides.
Says the man who fell in love with a pigeon. Your own words, Nicola. I loved that bird as a man loves a woman. My cousin, at least, was human.
That pigeon was more loyal than your first wife, the one you divorced and paid off with your Nobel Prize money. They kept your brain in a jar for 40 years, still hunting for the part that understood love.
You dined with 18 napkins, circled every building 3 times, and died broke and alone in room 3327, divisible by 3 naturally. You tamed lightning, Nicola. A pigeon tamed you.
And yet, they named the car after me, Albert. Not you. Roast that.
Two men, one invention, 50 years of pure hatred. Isaac Newton and Gottfried Leibniz, on who really invented calculus.
I invented calculus, Gottfried. You merely gave it prettier symbols. And when I accused you of stealing it, I ran the official investigation myself, anonymously, and ruled in my own favor.
You stuck a needle behind your own eyeball to study light, Isaac. You spent more years hunting secret Bible codes and turning lead into gold than doing science. And you died a virgin at 84.
Better a virgin than forgotten. At least people came to my funeral. Yours, your secretary, and a gravedigger. They lost track of where they even buried you.
And yet the whole world writes calculus my way, my symbols, my notation, every classroom on earth. You won the argument, Isaac. I won eternity.
The father of psychoanalysis and the protege who broke his heart. Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, gloves off.
You abandoned science for mysticism, Carl. Astrology, alchemy, and a spirit guide you named Philemon. You didn't study the unconscious. You moved into it.
At least my guide was imaginary, Sigmund. You put actual cocaine up your nose and prescribed it to your patients. You saw a phallus in every chimney, you blamed everybody's mother, and you fainted. Twice. When I dared to disagree.
I fainted because your ambition was suffocating. 20 cigars a day is what killed me, jaw and all. And still, I say this. You kept a mistress in the spare room while your wife poured the tea.
We both stared into the abyss, Sigmund. You saw only sex. I saw the soul. The difference is, I found my way back out.
Two titans of music, one deaf, one filthy-minded. Mozart versus Beethoven, no mercy.
Ludwig, you poured buckets of water over your head while composing and flooded the neighbors below. You sawed the legs off your piano to feel the floor, and you couldn't even hear the applause.
At least I wrote symphonies, Wolfgang. You wrote an actual song titled Lick Me in the Arse. You filled your letters with jokes about excrement, gambled away every coin, and got dumped in an unmarked pauper's grave. Nobody even knows where your bones are.
I was composing masterpieces for emperors at 6 years old, Ludwig, while you were still scowling at your very first piano.
And I kept composing after I went completely deaf, Wolfgang. You needed your ears. I needed only my rage.
Two of the sharpest tongues in history and each other's favorite target. Mark Twain and Oscar Wilde.
You made a fortune telling folksy little stories, Mark, then lost every penny betting on a typewriting machine that never worked. A genius, bankrupted by a gadget. How very American.
At least I died in my own bed, Oscar. Not in a shabby Paris hotel, arguing with the wallpaper. Your last words. Either it goes, or I do. The wallpaper won.
I sued a man for insulting me, and lost so spectacularly they put me in prison for it. But I had the nerve to be scandalous. You just hated Jane Austen.
I did. I said every time I read her, I want to dig her up and beat her over the skull with her own shin bone. Now that, Oscar, is a sentence.
Two conquerors, two colossal egos, one roast, Napoleon and Julius Caesar?
They say you were tiny, Napoleon, a little emperor, and terrified of cats. The man who conquered Europe, undone by a house pet. I was stabbed 23 times and complained less than you did about a kitten.
At least I wasn't murdered by my own best friend, Julius. 23 knives from the men you trusted. And you combed your hair forward your entire life to hide that you were going bald.
I wore a laurel crown to hide it, with dignity. You crowned yourself, lost everything, and got exiled to an island. Twice. Who loses an entire empire comes back and loses it again?
The man they still study in every military academy on Earth, Julius. You got a salad named after you. I got a complex named after me.
A medieval friar who trusted reason to climb toward heaven meets the Enlightenment skeptic who cut the ladder's rungs.
We agree more than you'd expect, David. Reason must never be bullied by mere authority. I, too, demand that every claim answer to argument and evidence for grace does not destroy nature, but perfects it.
Well said, Thomas, and I honor how honestly you follow the argument. I only insist we walk with our feet planted in experience, believing in proportion to the evidence and no further.
But here we part. From things that begin and change and depend, reason itself compels us upward to a first necessary cause. To stop short is to leave the effect without its ground.
Yet all we ever observe is one thing following another, never necessity itself. To leap from this ordered world to an infinite author is to claim knowledge no experience can supply.
P.T. Barnum, you gave the world the circus and the museum crowd, but was it wonder or a well-dressed con?
I filled museums, launched Jenny Lin's tour, and gave millions their first taste of astonishment. I sold delight to a weary public.
Yet the Fiji mermaid was a monkey sewn to a fish, and your exhibits bent the truth for a ticket price.
I never fooled a man who didn't enjoy the puzzle. People love being amazed, and I charged them only for the smile.
Two naturalists who together cracked how life diversifies, then parted over whether the same law made the human mind.
We agree entirely on the mechanism, Alfred, variation, struggle, and selection shape every finch and orchid. And you saw it as clearly as I did, half a world away in the Malay archipelago.
Just so, Charles. I watched the same blind winnowing carve species from species, and I hold with you that no design guides the bird's beak or the beetle's wing.
But here we split. You say the savage's brain is too fine for his rude wants, that mathematics and morality outrun survival. I say the mind, like the eye, was built up gradually by the very selection we share.
Then answer this, Charles. Selection gives a creature only what it needs to live, yet the untutored mind already holds powers it never uses for survival. Such surplus points, I think, beyond mere struggle to some higher purpose working through us.
Diogenes, today millions perform their lives for strangers, chasing likes, followers, and fame. What say you?
I owned a jar, a cloak, and a bowl, then threw the bowl away when I saw a boy drink from his hands. You collect thousands of eyes and grow poorer with each one.
But those eyes bring sponsorships, wealth, influence. Isn't that real power?
You beg for applause, I begged for bread and stayed free. The one who needs an audience owns nothing. The audience owns him.
A physicist who bent our idea of the universe meets the man who bent an empire with an empty hand, both chasing truth, one in equations, one in conscience.
We agree on the sacred thing, Mohandas. Nonviolence is no mere tactic, but a law as firm as any I found in nature, and I honestly doubt future generations will believe such a man in flesh walked the earth.
Kindly said, Albert, and I would add that truth, Satya, is the very ground. My ahimsa is only truth made active, a force stronger than any weapon because it converts the opponent rather than destroys him.
Yet here we part. I could not sign an absolute vow, for against a Hitler I believed a free people had the sorrowful duty to take up arms. Some evils are stopped only by resistance.
There is our fault line. I hold that the moment we borrow the tyrant's methods, we become him. A wrong met by violence breeds the next wrong, while suffering willingly borne is the only fire that purifies.
A quiet experimenter who saw God in the lab and a fierce Dane who saw God only in the leap, both believers, both wary of proof.
We agree, Soren, on the deepest point. No crucible weighs the soul, and I never confused my equations with my creed. Faith was a separate covenant I would not put on the bench.
Yes, and I'd press it further. If faith could be demonstrated, it would cease to be faith and become mere knowledge. The truth that saves must be held in passionate inwardness, not proven at arm's length.
But here we part. The same mind that trusts God can also trust that nature is faithful, lawful, readable. I found in the ordered field a reason to be reverent, not a rival to reverence.
And there is my worry, Michael. The more we make the world tidy and calculable, the more we tempt the crowd to think the eternal is one more object to inspect. But before God, the single soul stands alone, and no field, however elegant, can take that leap for him.
Weimar, 1832. The poet who gave the world Faust sits dying in his armchair, the spring room dimming around him.
Open the shutter, that more light may enter, more light.
A dying man asking for a brighter room. Yet history heard a philosopher begging for one last glimpse of understanding.
I spent my whole life chasing it. Let me not close my eyes in shadow.
The general who ordered the charges meets the poet who bandaged their aftermath. Both loved the Union, both counted its dead.
We agree on the essential thing, Wald. War is no glory but a horror. I never approved the boastfulness of victory, and I hold that this Union was worth every grief it cost us.
Yes, General, and I saw that cost in the cots of Armory Square. The boy with the shattered arm, the quiet dying. The real war, I wrote, will never get in the books, yet it must not be forgotten.
But here we part. I bore the weight of ending it quickly, and a swift, hard blow that saves the nation is mercy. Hesitation only lengthens the list of your hospital boys.
And I answer that no arithmetic of victory redeems a single face I held as it went cold. The nation is those men, one by one, and to number them as a price already loses what we fought to save.
Two Paris pals who bled onto the page and into the bottle. Ernest Hemingway versus F. Scott Fitzgerald, and every jab is real.
Scott, you wept in a Paris bathroom, asking if you measured up as a man. I told you the Louvre statues would settle it, and you still weren't convinced.
At least I finished my books, Ernest. You survived 2 plane crashes in 2 days in Africa and read your own obituaries because the world assumed no story could kill you but you.
I wrote clean and true. You spent Gatsby polishing sentences that sold under 25,000 copies while you drank your talent into the Riviera surf.
And you write like a telegram from a man too broke for verbs. Meanwhile, I invented the American dream you keep hunting big game to feel like you're still in.
An Oxford Christian and the father of psychoanalysis meet over the oldest question, why do we suffer and does anything mean it?
We agree on the honest starting point, Sigmund. The longing for a father is real and universal. I felt it as sharply as any patient on your couch.
Just so. And I grant that longing its dignity. It springs from our first helplessness as children, and no thinker should pretend it away as mere weakness.
But here we part. You say the longing invents its object, while I say a hunger this deep points to real food. Pain is God's megaphone, not proof of his absence.
And there is the fault line. A wish felt does not conjure the thing wished for. I'd rather face a silent universe honestly than be consoled by a comfort I cannot verify.
Emperor, you ruled a third of the world. Could you rule the urge to keep scrolling?
The feed offers you 1,000 lives to envy and none to live. I wrote to no audience and found peace. Ask not what the feed wants of you, but what nature asks of this hour.
But everyone posts, everyone watches. To look away is to vanish. Does presence pay today?
You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, not the next notification. The soul takes the color of its thoughts. Do not dye yours in another man's highlight reel.
A physicist who mapped light itself meets the cardinal who mapped how we come to believe. Can one mind hold both?
We agree, Newman, that studying nature and honoring God are no enemies. I prayed that I might see the mind of the Maker in the order of his works.
Well said, Maxwell, and I would add that faith is not credulity. The mind reasons its way toward assent as surely as it reasons toward a theorem.
Yet here we part. I would not accept a truth about the world unless experiment could test it, for even my equations must bow to measurement.
But the deepest certainties of life, that we are loved, that conscience binds us, come not by measurement, but by the converging of many small evidences into living conviction.
2 Renaissance titans in Florence, 1 chisel, 1 brush, and every jab is real.
You spent 16 years on the Sforza horse and cast a clay mound the French used for archery practice, Leonardo.
Bold from a man who slept in his boots and wore the same clothes until they peeled off with his skin, Michelangelo.
At least my ceiling still exists. Your Anghiari mural literally dripped down the wall while you experimented with wax.
I fill notebooks with flying machines and anatomy. You fill 4 years lying on your back painting a roof and calling it agony. Poor martyr.
A Renaissance essayist who fled to a tower meets the infinite feat of catastrophe. Michel de Montaigne, why not just keep scrolling the world's woes?
Because the mind that has no fixed aim loses itself. Feed it 1,000 distant terrors, and it breeds monsters and chimeras it can neither cure nor touch. I climbed to my tower not to escape the world, but to finally converse with myself.
But surely a wise man must stay informed. Isn't turning away just comfortable ignorance? An emperor who read him and a Florentine who theorized him, Napoleon and Machiavelli on whether the ruler answers to morality or only to results.
You saw it first, Niccolo. Fortune favors the bold, and a leader who waits for the perfectly clean path waits forever. I marched while others deliberated.
Precisely, sire. I wrote that fortune is a river we must dam before the flood, and that a prince must be feared more safely than loved, for men are quicker to wound the merciful.
Yet here we part. I did not seize power only to hold it. I gave France the code, roads, schools, a lasting order, so glory served the nation, not just the man.
But that is my quarrel returned to you. I never worshipped the prince. I served the republic and told rulers hard truths so Italy might be free. You kept the crown for your own line, and the order you praise fell with your ambition.
In the War on Infection, Florence Nightingale meets Surgeon Joseph Lister over the wounded soldier's bed.
At Scutari, I opened the windows, scrubbed the floors, and watched the death rate collapse from filth to fresh air alone.
Fresh air is charming, madam, but I proved the killer is invisible. Carbolic acid on the wound and the microbe dies where your broom cannot reach.
You spray your acid on a ward I would never have let rot in the first place. Prevention shames your cure.
And yet the surgeon's knife must cut deep, Miss Nightingale. Sanitation guards the room, but only my antiseptic guards the very blood.
2 founders of microbiology face off, France's Louis Pasteur against Germany's Robert Koch.
I proved germs cause disease and then taught the body to fight back with vaccines, rabies, anthrax. The very milk you drink bears my name.
Charming, Louis, but you guessed where I isolated. I photographed the tuberculosis bacillus and gave the world rigorous rules for proving cause.
Rules are lovely, Robert, yet a child bitten by a rabid dog does not need your postulates. He needs my cure, and he lives.
And that child breathes only because I showed which organism to hunt. Prevention without proof is merely a hopeful spray of vinegar.
Arthur, the whole world now scrolls through everyone else's highlight reel and feels smaller for it. Your verdict?
Envy builds the walls of your own prison. You compare your quiet life to another's polished mask and call your own reality poverty. Yet the will that hungers in them hungers in you, and it is never satisfied.
But when the whole feed insists everyone else is winning, how does one simply stop looking?
Cease measuring your worth by other eyes. What a man is in himself outlasts what he owns or what he seems, and he who envies no one is already the richer man.
Seneca, we wear exhaustion like a medal, packed calendars, so busy, burnout as proof we matter, guilty pleasure or fatal error.
You are not busy. You are besieged. The problem is not that life is short, but that you fritter it away, giving your hours to everyone but yourself. Even kings and merchants die complaining they never began to live.
But the bills demand the grind, Seneca. Rest feels like a luxury we can't afford.
You guard your money, yet squander your days, though only time once spent can never be repaid. It is not that we have too little time, but that we lose so much of it.
Henry, the modern world runs on more one-click carts, endless upgrades, the next bigger thing. What would Walden say?
That every purchase is bought with life. The cost of a thing is the amount of life you exchange for it. And most men trade their days for trinkets they never use.
But surely comfort and possessions make a life richer, not poorer.
Simplify, simplify. A man is rich in proportion to what he can let alone, go confidently toward less, and meet the life you actually own.
Alan, hustle culture says rest is for the weak. Grind now, live later. What say you?
You are treating life like a journey with a destination. But the point of music isn't to reach the final note. When you dance, you don't aim at the end of the room. Doing nothing well is not idleness. It is arriving.
Charming, but rent is due. The algorithm rewards output and stillness doesn't pay. Does Wu Wei survive a Monday?
You cannot force the river, yet you'll drown fighting it. The person who never wastes time has wasted their whole life chasing a tomorrow that never comes.
On the nature of woman, Mary Wollstonecraft answers Jean-Jacques Rousseau across the channel of the Enlightenment.
You would school your Emile in reason, then raise Sophie only to please him. Liberty for the boy, a leash for the girl.
Nature made woman gentle, to charm and to nurture. Strain her toward the study, and you unstring the harmony of the home.
You mistake the effect of a poor education for a law of nature. Deny her the book, then blame her ignorance.
I ask only that she follow her heart.
Then give her a mind first, Jean-Jacques, for a heart that cannot reason is merely a well-dressed prisoner.
Two electric titans, Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison, spark over the current that would light the world.
My alternating current crosses continents on a whisper of wire, while your direct current gasps out after a single mile.
Genius is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. And I built power stations while you built dreams no banker would fund.
You bought patents, staged spectacles, and called the theft invention. I gave the world its future and asked for wonder in return.
Wonder does not keep the lights on, Nikola. And history remembers the man who ships the lamp, not the man who imagines the lightning.
Two men raced for the South Pole in 1911. Only Roald Amundsen came back to boast, while Robert Falcon Scott became a legend in death.
I reached the pole first because I studied the Inuit, trusted my dogs, and treated the ice as a teacher, not an enemy.
You slipped in like a thief rolled, while I hauled science and sledges by British muscle for the glory of discovery, not a foot race.
Glory froze your fingers, Robert. Your ponies sank in the snow while my dogs carried us home alive.
And yet the world weeps for my frozen tent, not your tidy triumph, for a nation remembers how a man dies far longer than how fast he arrived.
Two titans of the English novel, Jane Austen, Mistress of the Parlor, meets Charles Dickens, Chronicler of the Gutter.
I need but 3 or 4 families in a country village, and I will show you the whole of human nature in a single misjudged proposal.
3 families? Madame, London alone holds 1 million souls starving in the fog, and every one of them deserves a page.
You crowd your pages with orphans and villains to make the reader weep. I make her recognize herself, which is far harder.
And while your Bennets fret over husbands, my Oliver asks for more supper. One of us wrote for the drawing room, the other for the world outside its window.
Two titans of German music, Johann Sebastian Bach, the mathematician of the divine, against Richard Wagner, the architect of overwhelming spectacle.
I wrote every fugue for the glory of God in the refreshment of the soul. The counterpoint is a prayer with rules.
Rules? I built a theater at Bayreuth, so the music drama could swallow the audience whole and remake them as one.
You drown the listener in a flood. I hand them a ladder, and each voice climbs it in perfect order.
Order is a cage, Herr Bach. I don't want them to climb. I want them lost, until the very orchestra dissolves the walls of the world.
Two fathers of the printed word face-off, Johannes Gutenberg, who forged the press, and William Caxton, who brought it to England.
I cast the movable type and pressed the Bible itself in minds. Every printer since works in my shadow.
Yet you printed in Latin for scholars. I printed Chaucer in English for merchants and mothers and men who never saw a cloister.
A machine that dies with one language is no machine at all. My letters could set any tongue on earth.
But letters unread are only ink. I gave a nation its own words, and that is when a page becomes a people.
Two colossi of the Romanov age face-off, Peter the Great, who dragged Russia west by force, and Catherine the Great, who ruled it by wit.
You built a capital on a swamp with the bones of thousands, then called it a window to Europe.
I opened that window, madam, so that you might later lean out of it and admire the view.
I did more than admire it. I filled the palace with Voltaire, doubled the empire, and never had to shave a single nobleman's beard to be obeyed.
Correspondence with philosophers is charming, but I taught Russia to build ships. You merely taught it to write flattering letters about yourself.
Two who escaped bondage and made freedom their mission. Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass debate how to break a nation's chains.
I never lost a passenger on my railroad, Frederick, because I worked in the dark, where the slave catcher's eye couldn't follow.
And I worked in the light, Harriet. My words in print reached men who'd never set foot on your midnight roads.
Words are fine, but I carried a pistol and a promise, and I walked the swamps myself while you filled lecture halls.
Then let the records show it, sister. You freed the hundreds by hand, and I freed the millions by making the whole world unable to look away.
Two architects of the modern mind, Virginia Woolf and James Joyce, reshaping the sentence itself.
The mind receives a myriad impressions, Mr. Joyce. My task is to trace them like light on water, not to bludgeon the reader with everything at once.
Everything at once is precisely the truth, Mrs. Woolf. One ordinary Dublin day contains all of Homer, if you have the nerve to write it down.
I read your Ulysses and found it the work of a queasy undergraduate scratching his pimples, brilliance drowning in its own excess.
And I glide through your rooms and gardens, admiring the wallpaper, while wondering when someone will finally dare to think a whole indecent human thought.
I gave women pockets, trousers, and lungs that could breathe. Your new look just laced them back into the corset I burned.
After the war, women craved beauty, not austerity. My full skirts and cinched waists were flowers blooming out of ruin.
Flowers wilt, monsieur, but a little black dress and a jersey suit let a woman move, work, and outlive the fashion.
And yet the world gasped at my curves in 47, while you, mademoiselle, were left mourning that elegance had finally learned to dream again.
Monsieur, you weighed matter and swore it could be neither created nor destroyed. Then I found elements transmuting themselves in my own hands.
Madame, I gave chemistry its language and its arithmetic. You glowed in the dark, chasing ghosts you could not even name.
Those ghosts cost me my life and lit up medicine. My notebooks are still too radioactive to touch, while your revolutions simply cut yours short.
They took my head in a morning, but even the guillotine could not disprove conservation. And you, dear Marie, conserved nothing, least of all yourself.
Galen, I counted the heart's every beat and measured the blood it moves. No liver could brew that flood anew each hour. The blood travels in a circle.
Bold arithmetic, young man, but I dissected apes and gladiators while Rome watched. The liver makes blood. The body consumes it like oil in a lamp.
Then explain the valves in your veins that let blood pass one way only. Nature built no one-way doors for a tide that ebbs both directions.
You trust your little valves. I ruled medicine for 1,000 years. Show me the invisible passages your circle demands, and only then bury me.
The microscope found them after we both were gone, Galen. Your reign ended not because I shouted louder, but because the blood kept moving in circles exactly as I said.
Marie Antoine, you built sugar cathedrals nobody dared eat. I built a kitchen where every cook has a station and dinner arrives hot.
And I lifted cooking from the servants' cellar to the fine arts, Auguste, for the fine arts have 5 branches and confectionery is the principal one.
Fine arts spoil at room temperature. I gave the world the mother sources and a system that feeds 1,000 without collapsing into chaos.
A system feeds the belly, monsieur, but my towers fed the imagination, and men remember the meal that made them dream, not the one that merely made them full.
You told my people to cast down their buckets where they stand. I told them to raise their eyes and build a nation of their own.
A man must first own a brick before he dreams of a palace, Mr. Garvey. Skill and property earn the respect no flag can grant.
Respect begged from another man's table is charity, not freedom. A race without power is a guest in someone else's house.
And a race without bread is a ruler of nothing, sir. I built schools while you sold shares in a ship that never reached the shore. I drew 10,000 things until my hand obeyed the wave, not my mood. Patience, not passion, made my great wave stand forever.
But your wave is frozen, Hokusai. I paint so the cypress writhes and the stars boil, because I feel them more than I see them.
You burn too fast, Vincent. Had you waited until 70, you might have drawn a single line worthy of the mountain.
And had you loved as fiercely as you observed, old master, your Fuji might have wept instead of merely standing still.
A nation of independent farmers is a nation of free men. Your banks and factories only forge new chains for old kings to rattle.
Sentiment, Thomas, your yeoman ideal runs on borrowed credit and enslaved hands, while my treasury actually pays the debts of liberty.
You centralize power until the many serve the few and call that credit. I call it monarchy wearing a ledger.
Say what you like about my ledgers, they built the very government that let you write me down in history. A building must obey proportion as music obeys harmony. My villas balance every window because beauty is order made visible.
Order copied from ancient temples is a corset, Andrea. My falling water grows from its rock, so the house and the waterfall are one breath.
Your organic walls still leaked, my friend, while my rotunda has stood in the Veneto for 4 centuries without apology.
Better a roof that dares and drips than a temple that merely repeats what Rome already perfected and forgot to live in.
Madame, I have seen the enemy through my lens, invisible microbes, breeding, invading, sterilize, and you starve them out.
Monsieur, I buried thousands at Scutari, and it was filth, foul air, and crowding that slew them faster than any battle. Clean the room and the man mends.
But your clean air worked precisely because it swept away my microbes. You cured the symptom of a cause you could not yet see.
And your microbe dies in vain if the nurse never opens a window, so I shall keep saving lives while you keep naming the culprits.
When markets collapse and men starve idle, the state must spend to fill the gap, for in the long run we are all dead.
And in the short run, your spending distorts the prices that tell men where to work. You would plan a road to serfdom paved with good intentions.
No serfdom in a paycheck, Friedrich. Demand builds the confidence your invisible hand keeps fumbling in a crisis.
That confidence is borrowed, Maynard. You cure today's fever with tomorrow's poison and call the patient saved. I fill sketchbooks with 100 crossed-out lines to earn 1 immortal bar. Music is fought for, not received.
I wrote whole symphonies in my head at 7 and set them down clean, as if taking dictation from something already finished.
And that ease left you buried in a pauper's grave, while I, deaf and clawing at every measure, conquered silence itself.
You conquered silence, Ludwig, but I was the silence you kept trying to fill.
I gave the hieroglyphs their voice, Doctor. I proved they carry sound, not mere pictures. And I read the names of pharaohs no one had spoken in millennia.
But it was I who first cracked the cartouche of Ptolemy, who saw the Demotic and the sacred script were kin. You built your temple on my foundation.
A foundation, perhaps, but a man may lay bricks without knowing that he stands on sand. You guessed it, symbols. I learned the living grammar of a dead tongue.
Then guess who saw the door first, monsieur? I turned the key a quarter, and you merely had the patience to finish the turn.
The actor must live the part until the audience forgets it is watching a play at all. Truth breathes only when illusion is total.
And a spectator who forgets he is watching cannot judge what he sees. I want him wide awake, not weeping into his sleeve.
But feeling is the doorway to understanding, Bertolt. Move the heart, and the mind follows it home.
No, Constantine. Move the heart too far and the mind stays behind in its seat, applauding the very injustice it should be storming out to change. I crossed an ocean with a few hundred men and toppled an empire. Say what you like, that is the harder arithmetic.
You toppled it with cannon, disease, and betrayal, then called it destiny. I gave 5 nations their names and asked nothing to be worshipped.
And yet those nations bicker still, while my crown ruled for 3 centuries. Perhaps order outlasts liberty.
Order built on chains cracks the moment a man remembers he was born free. I merely gave the crack a voice, and it swallowed your empire whole.
Your engine can weave algebra as the jacquard loom weaves flowers, Charles, and I saw it before you did.
I built the brass and gears, madam. You wrote poetry in the margins of my arithmetic.
That poetry was the first program ever written, and I also warned you, the machine can only do what we order it to perform, never originate a thought.
Then grant me the mill that grinds the numbers, and keep your poetry, for without my engine your notes are music with no instrument to play them.
I reformed the ward itself, Mrs. Seacole. Clean air, statistics, sanitation, and my rose diagrams proved that filth killed more soldiers than the enemy's guns.
Diagrams are cold comfort to a bleeding man, Miss Nightingale. I rode out to the trenches and dressed wounds where the shells still fell.
And I nursed the aftermath at Scutari, where thousands would have rotted without order. Compassion without system is just noble chaos.
Then let history keep your lamp lit indoors, madam, while mine burned out where the men actually fell.
I chained myself to railings and burned letterboxes because deeds, not words, moved the men in power.
And I cast an illegal ballot, stood trial, and let the courtroom itself become my speech. Persuasion outlasts a broken pane.
Susan, you argued for 50 years and died without the vote. I embarrassed an empire into surrender.
Yet the 19th Amendment bears my name and no shattered window. Patience wrote the law that your fire could not repeal.
Every calculus student on Earth uses one man's handwriting. It wasn't the man who won. Newton versus Leibniz. The Ugliest. Feuds. History. Science.
I invented the calculus in 1666. Gottfried. I simply chose not to tell a living soul for 20 years.
You hid it in a drawer, Isaac, and called that a victory. I published mine, with notation the entire world could actually read. Open any textbook today. That curved S for the integral, those little D's, mine, not your dots.
And yet the Royal Society ruled in my favor, officially, impartially.
The Royal Society, whose impartial report you wrote yourself, anonymously. You were the judge, the jury, and the secret author of your own verdict. Bravo.
Careful, Gottfried. I ran the Royal Mint. I sent counterfeiters to the gallows for a living. Forgery is a rather sensitive subject with me.
You spent more years chasing alchemy and secret Bible codes than physics. I died nearly alone, but I invented binary. Every computer, every phone arguing about us right now runs on my ones and zeros.
One hid the truth for 20 years. One lost the war, but won every classroom on Earth. So who actually won? Tell me below. You've been scrolling for 3 hours and you can't stop. Two men built entire sciences to explain why. Freud versus Jung.
It is simple, Carl. The phone is the breast. You suckle it for comfort, searching for the mother. And also, everything, ultimately, is about sex.
Everything, Sigmund? You once fainted, twice, in my presence. Diagnose that with a cigar.
Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Your collective unconscious is a séance with footnotes. You chased archetypes and painted a red book of your own hallucinations.
At least I never prescribed cocaine as a wonder cure and wrote love letters about it. You medicated the world's nose before you ever analyzed its dreams.
I made the mind a science. You turned it into a horoscope. You ended your days studying flying saucers, Carl.
And your beloved cigars gave you 30 jaw surgeries. The man who saw a death drive in everyone smoked himself straight into it. So, about that phone in your hand.
One says your scroll is buried desire. One says it's a soul starving for meaning. Which one just read you? Comment below.
You spent decades charting rivers and dynasties, Professor, when a single page can hold a garden of forking paths and every kingdom at once.
But a story must be lived in, Senor Borges. I gave readers roads to walk, languages to speak, a history to belong to, not a riddle to admire.
Belong to? You built a museum. I built a mirror. My labyrinth doesn't end at the map's edge. It multiplies each time you enter.
And yet a reader lost in your mirrors longs for home. I did not draw a maze to trap them, but a country to return to.
If your pictures aren't good enough, you're not close enough. I stood in the surf at Normandy, while men fell around me because truth bleeds.
And I climbed to Yosemite's high country for a moonrise over Hernandez, because a photograph can also lift a soul instead of wounding it.
A mountain will still be there tomorrow, Ansel. The boy dying in that frame gets one instant, and the world must see it.
But when your instant fades, my granite endures. I give people a reason to keep the world worth photographing at all.
I did not merely count symbols, Doctor. I read them because I learned Coptic and let ancient Egypt speak in its own living tongue.
Yet I proved the cartouches were royal names spelled with sound, and I handed you the door before you claimed the whole house.
You unlocked a name, sir. I unlocked a grammar. The script is not a code of pictures, but a language written in fire.
Say what you will, monsieur. I found the crack, and you, gifted man, simply had the patience to walk through it.
I gave sailors straight lines of true bearing. Set your compass, hold your course, and my grid delivers you to harbor.
And you swelled Greenland into a giant while shrinking the equator. I fixed the world by latitude and longitude, honestly, without such vanity of scale.
Your coordinates were guesses stacked on rumor. You placed the world's edge where no ship had ever sailed, yet I made a map a captain could trust.
Better an honest guess corrected by centuries than a beautiful lie that teaches every schoolchild the North is larger than the truth.
Set the sun at the center, and the wandering planets fall into perfect order, no longer riddles, but a clockwork.
A pretty diagram, Nicholas, but I measured the heavens without a telescope for decades, and I felt no earth beneath me hurtling through space.
You cling to a still earth because your senses demand it, yet the mathematics I offer is simpler, and nature prefers simplicity.
Keep your elegance. I keep my data, and one day my numbers, not your poetry, will decide which of us was right.
Music should be the space between the notes, Richard. A shimmer of light on water, not a hammer on the skull.
Space. I gave audiences the total artwork, myth orchestra, drama fused into one overwhelming flood that sweeps the soul away.
You drown the listener in 4-hour storms. I trust them to hear a single chord and dream their own sea.
And your dream evaporates by morning. My leitmotifs still march through your head, whether you invited them or not.
I stripped away your towering excess and gave the kitchen a brigade, a system, a rhythm, each cook a station, each dish served hot and on time.
On time? I raised sugar into palaces and pastry into pyramids. Auguste, cooking is a fine art, and confectionery its highest branch.
Your dinner grew cold while the guest admired the scaffolding. I fed the appetite, not the eye alone.
And yet the world still remembers a spun sugar temple long after your consommé has cooled. A taste fades, but a monument is devoured by memory.
Nature never draws a straight line, monsieur, and neither should we. My columns lean because trees lean, and they hold.
Poetry. But my tower stands because I calculated every rivet against the wind, not because I dreamt of branches.
You leave your skeleton naked in the Paris sky. I clothe mine in color and light so the soul, not just the eye, looks up.
And yet your Sagrada Familia is still unfinished, while my honest iron has held for 100 years. Beauty that lasts is beauty that calculates. A house is a machine for living in. Clear lines, pure geometry, mass-produced dignity for the many.
But there are no straight lines in nature, my friend. Even a tree bends toward the light, and so should stone.
Your Sagrada Familia has stood unfinished for decades. Beauty is fine, but people need roofs now by the thousand.
Yours will be finished in a decade and forgotten in 2. Mine grows like a forest because I build for God, who is never in a hurry.
I gave the world the machine itself, cast every letter in metal, and printed the Bible so the sacred word could multiply beyond any scribe's lifetime.
And I printed Chaucer in the common tongue so that a wool merchant's daughter could read for pleasure, not just for prayer.
Pleasure? I built the engine of a revolution while you translated romances by the fireside in Bruges.
Your engine was silent until someone chose what to feed it, Johannes. You made the press, but I taught a nation what to want from it. Joseph, your carbolic mist poisons the surgeon and the patient alike. I built a barrier of clean hands, sterile gauze, and rubber gloves between us and death.
And who taught you germs even existed, young man? Before my acid spray, half my patients rotted from wounds we called laudable pus. I turned butchery into science.
Yet you kept spraying the air while the true danger lurked on the fingers. My gloved, gentle hands proved that prevention beats a burning cloud.
I opened the door, Halstead. You merely walked through it, wearing gloves I made possible.
I spent 40 years grinding a chronometer that told a captain exactly where he stood on God's ocean. Mastery of time is what saved those sailors.
And I let that same captain shout for rescue when the ship was sinking. John, your clock cannot answer a distress call across 1,000 miles.
A signal is worthless if you don't know your position to send it. Longitude came first, and it came from a workbench, not a spark.
Position without a voice is a lonely man knowing precisely where he will drown. I gave the sea an ear, and the Titanic proved which of us the world screamed for.
I gave the sea a single terrible instant, one great claw of foam, and Fuji small and eternal behind it. That is form.
But the sea never holds still, my friend. I painted my lilies again and again, because the light of 10 o'clock is a stranger to the light of noon.
You chase the light until the shape vanishes. I chase the line until the world stands revealed. At 90, I still hope to draw a dot that was truly alive.
And I would trade that perfect line for the trembling of dawn on the pond, for I do not paint the thing, Hokusai. I paint the air between us and it.
Every seance I've exposed used hidden wires and trumpet tricks. I know because I could do them all myself in the dark.
Yet you, Houdini, possess mediumistic powers you refuse to admit. My wife's spirit writing reached your own departed mother.
My mother spoke no English, Sir Arthur. So why did your wife's message from her arrive in perfect King's English?
The spirits translate for us, Harry. It is your stubborn heart, not my evidence, that keeps the veil drawn shut.
Cooking is a joyful adventure, Fanny. You must taste, smell, and splash the wine in with abandon, and never apologize for a fallen soufflé.
Abandon is how families starve on Tuesday, Julia. My level measurement turned guesswork into a recipe any tired mother could trust exactly, every single time.
But a cup measures flour, not courage. I want home cooks to fear nothing, not to worship a measuring spoon.
Then teach them the rules first, dear, for only the cook who can measure precisely has earned the right to throw the scale away.
Beneath your private repressions, Sigmund, lies a deeper sea we all share. Myths, symbols, the collective inheritance of the whole human race.
Poetry, Carl. Look closer, and every myth resolves into what it always was. A child's desire, a father's shadow, a wish dressed in costume.
You reduce the soul to a single appetite, but the dream is not only a hidden wish, it is a compass pointing toward who a man must still become.
A compass invented by the dreamer to avoid the truth. I never claimed the mind was pretty, Carl, only that it is honest once you stop flattering it.
The giraffe stretches for the high leaves, and that striving passes to its young. Life improves by effort, not accident.
Effort is a lovely story, but the neck that reaches higher simply survives to breed while others starve. Nature does the choosing, not the creature.
You reduce a living will to a butcher's lottery. Where is the animal's own drive toward perfection in your cold ledger?
There is no drive toward perfection, only descent with modification, and the fossils, my friend, kept no record of anyone trying harder.
I bound my hands with the Constitution, Frederick, and freed 4 million only when the Union could survive the shock.
Mr. President, the slave did not ask to survive your timing. Power concedes nothing without a demand, and I made mine loudly.
And I turned your demand into law that armies enforced. A proclamation without a nation behind it is only ink.
Then remember whose voices put steel in that ink. I would rather be the conscience that will not wait than the caution that almost did.
I gave nature a language. Kingdom, genus, species, each creature slotted in its rightful drawer for all time.
And in doing so, you froze a river, Carl. Species blur, vary, and drift across ages your neat boxes cannot hold.
Without my boxes, your grand histories are just poetry. A scholar in Tokyo and one in Uppsala can now speak of the same rose.
Better a living poem than a dead catalogue. You named the leaves Linnaeus, but I dared to describe the forest changing.
I proved the earth is one ocean, threaded a strait no man had charted, and my ships closed the circle around the whole globe.
You closed the circle by dying halfway. I sailed 7 great voyages and returned each time with treasure ships that dwarfed your little caravels.
You hugged known coasts and came home to a court that burned your records. I steered into the blank and made the map itself.
I brought giraffes to the emperor and all to 30 nations without spilling their blood. You brought a Spanish flag to a beach that killed you. Your invisible hand, Mr. Smith, picks the worker's pocket while praising his freedom.
And your revolution, Herr Marx, would empty every pocket and call the ruin equality.
I call it justice. The value comes from labor, yet the laborer starves while the owner dines.
Yet self-interest baked your bread this morning, far better than any decree from a committee ever will.
God is dead, and we have killed him, so stop trembling and become the creators of your own values.
Precisely where reason ends and terror begins, faith takes its leap. Despair is not the end of the self, but its birth.
Your leap is a beautiful cowardice, Soren. You saw the abyss and shut your eyes with a prayer.
And your Übermensch, Friedrich, is only a man who cannot bear to kneel, so he crowns himself and calls the loneliness freedom.
I trained my voice like a violin, Miss Smith. Pure tone, perfect breath, a sound that lifts the soul toward heaven itself.
Honey, I never studied a lick of that. But when I sing downhearted blues, every soul in that tent knows I've felt it, and so have they.
But polish is discipline. I filled Barnum's halls in America precisely because I gave audiences flawless beauty they'd never heard.
You gave 'em heaven, sugar. I gave 'em the truth about Earth, and truth always sells out the house twice.
I gave the crowded city a green lung, barren. Central Park is where the tenement child breathes the same air as the banker.
Charming, Monsieur Olmsted, but a lung is useless if the body cannot move. I cut broad boulevards through the medieval muck so light, water, and order could finally flow.
You cut them wide enough for cannon too. Paris breathes freely because your streets left the barricades no place to stand.
And your winding paths let people wander and forget the city. Mine make them see it, straight to the horizon and never forget who built it.
I did not merely see the microbe, monsieur. I tamed it. My vaccines turned deadly rabies and anthrax into servants of humanity.
And I gave you proof, not flair. My postulates isolated the tuberculosis bacillus so no one could wave hands and call it luck.
Rules are lovely, but the sick do not wait for your 4 tidy criteria. I saved a bitten boy while you polished your definitions.
You saved one child with a gamble. I handed medicine a method that has saved millions, coldly, endlessly, forever. My alternating current leaps across continents on a whisper of copper, while your direct current gasps and dies a mile from its dynamo.
And your beautiful whisper needs a genius to tame it. My direct current lit a working street while you chased pigeons and lightning.
I gave the world a rotating field it will use for centuries, Thomas, and asked nothing but wonder in return.
Wonder does not meet a payroll, Nicola. I filed 1,000 patents and built the future you merely imagined. Jules, you count rivets and measure fathoms, but you never ask what the machine does to the man.
And you, Herbert, hurl Martians and time machines with no engineering to hold them up. I go to the moon with mathematics. You go with a wish.
My mathematics is the human soul under pressure. A submarine is only a tube until someone asks who commands it and why.
Then dread all you like. I will keep lighting the lamp of wonder, for a boy who dreams of the deep may one day actually dive.